Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name's Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have another great show. I have had, I think when we first started doing this, like 9 years ago, we first started the show, I think I had a food franchisor on. I know I did. We had a food franchisor on. And he was talking about food franchising, what he looks like, and what it looks like, and how to do it, and everything. I found it incredibly interesting, and you did too, with listeners. For those of you who've been with me 9 years, for those of you who haven't been with me 9 years, go back, listen to it. It's actually quite an interesting a show. But I came across this book. I don't remember how I came across this book. It's by Jon Ostenson, who's our guest today. It's called Non-Food Franchising: The Better Path to Business Ownership. I've read this twice, maybe more. Some sections I've read, I think probably 6 times. I went, huh. Because I got to tell you something. Got to tell you, honestly, from this chair right here, Coach Jay Izzo is about to tell you something. This has kind of got me interested. I'm like going, oh, John, do tell. That is really good stuff. I enjoy that. Here's the thing. And I know John's going to get into this when we talk. But I want you to think about a food franchise, right? Insert food franchise here. We all know the one with the golden arches, right? And if you live in the South like I do, there was a song called Mr. who was a dancer, and they do chicken and biscuits here, okay? It's not necessarily go time, but it rhymes with that, okay, is the thing. And so we have these food franchises. Can I tell you something that disturbs me at food franchises? If I were to be a food franchisor, I do not want to have to deal with the actual inventory of the food. Because you got to keep it cold, you got to keep it at a certain temperature. It can only last, hopefully it only, want to be running through it, and then you got to order it. And then I don't want to have to deal with that on such a regular basis, because the problem is, if you're in that fast food type of chain, right, you're probably going through food on a pretty regular basis. And so, which means that you've got to be constantly ordering. And it's probably not like, it's not once a month. You're doing things on a regular basis. I don't want to deal with that, right? I don't want to deal with the cooling. I don't want to deal with all the governmental stuff of when they come in, and am I clean enough? Because I'm serving food, and do I got everything all right? And what happens if you have one employee who decides that, this is good enough and it's not good enough because they didn't clean? That stinks, right? But I got to tell you, this non-food franchising thing. And then John started giving me some ideas, going, you can think a little outside the box here on this. Here's an idea. What if you have a business already and you want to be a franchisor? Maybe you've got a business that you've got everything all set together and you want to franchise it. Oh, that's possible too. He talks about it in this book, Non-Food Franchising. Yeah, we're going to have a great discussion with him today. So why don't I introduce him to you, because he's really awesome. Jon Ostenson, CFE. What does CFE stand for? Just help me out.
Certified Franchise Expert.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It is a top 1% global franchise consultant, is a frequent contributor on franchising for publications such as Inc., Forbes, Bloomberg, the Franchise Journal. You've probably heard of him. John is a semi-passive multi-brand franchisee and commits to the majority of his time to serving clients in his role as CEO of FranBridge Consulting. At FranBridge, he guides others in achieving their own dream, freedom of wealth generation through business ownership. Prior to FranBridge, John served as the president of Self-Genie, a national franchise system with over 200 locations. Before moving to Self-Genie, John invested 15 years in the corporate world, including a long tenure as VP of sales for Carter's Inc., responsible for over $350 million annually. He began his career as a consultant with the global firm Accenture. I know you've heard of that. He has his BBA and MBA degrees from the University of Georgia and lives in Atlanta, where he and his wife, and why I never read that last line, that last sentence before today, I have no idea. He has a wife, Jenny, and 3 children, and they're really active in the community. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, and welcome to A New Direction for the first time, Jon Ostenson. Jon, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Jay, excited to be here.
All right, glad to have you. I really did enjoy this book. I literally did go say it was. There were just times where I would go, huh, huh, huh. Isn't that interesting? You don't number the chapters, but we'll call them out kind of like a chapter 1, right? Business ownership, right? The American Dream is the first chapter in the book. And you have a quote here from Tony Gaskin. If you don't build your own dream, someone will hire you to help you build theirs. That one shouted right out at me at first. Starting a business is never easy. Listen, I know. I mean, starting my own coaching business and doing these things are not easy. But there's other ways. You don't have to necessarily bootstrap like I do. There's other ways to do this, isn't there? And franchising is one of those ways. So maybe help people. Let's just get started right into just the beginning steps of what is franchising. It's been around for a long time. Singer since 1851. Help us just kind of, get a feel for franchising a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when I say the F word franchise, people immediately think of McDonald's or Subway, right? The fast food, which we've got nothing against those guys. We need them. We support them. But there are easier ways to make money, in my humble opinion and in my experience. And look forward to jumping into all those industries. Oftentimes people don't have on their radar or their bingo card when they hear the word franchise. But end of the day, what a franchise is, it is a way to get into business ownership for yourself. You are a business owner. However, you have a support system on that sideline. You've got a franchisor. Yes, you're using their brand name, but end of the day, it's so much more than that. It's a playbook. It's a system that's been proven out in other similar markets. It's a team on the sidelines that is supporting you in different ways, from lead generation to training to operations. You've got a community of other franchisees living the same thing day in, day out. So it's kind of this built-in mastermind where you're learning from each other. And obviously, you get economies of scale where you're able to bulk buy for goods and services. There's just a lot of benefits. And to be cliche, you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. And I think that means so much to all those out there that have been in business at some point by themselves. They know the value that having a support system would have been nice to have had in their situation.
It is lonely to build your own thing, right? And the thing about the franchising thing, which I found, the non-food franchising industry, I just found it so, you kept talking about, listen, you got people who are willing to help you. You've got mentorship. You got other people who have franchises like you, different areas, different other places in the country. You kind of talk about what's going on. Just a lot of support that you may not have when you try to build your own business. I want to go back to this idea, though, that you state in this first chapter of the book. You say serving at someone else's prerogative can be far riskier, no matter how loyal an employee you may be. To be non-expendable, you have to be the owner.
I hear the case studies every day. I read the articles in the Wall Street Journal almost every day. And right now, the topic du jour is AI. That's coming for jobs, right?
Right.
A few years ago, it was COVID. There's always going to be something that's coming for jobs. And when you're serving at someone else's mercy, it's great while it lasts. Yeah, great in some ways, right? I mean, I'm thankful for the experience I had in the corporate world. I spent many years working for someone else, helping build the empire for the company, but also for the shareholders.
Right.
But you just don't have the same pride that you do in building your own.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's something else here too. We get stuck at times working for people, and I've worked for people before, right? I don't love it as much as they do. Right? I mean, yeah, I try to find purpose in my work, but there's people out there who are trying to find purpose in their work, and they're going, this is just a paycheck. But when you build something and you see the why, the real why of why you're of doing this, right? And this is the thing about the franchising business, is that you don't explicitly state in the book, but now it's kind of like, I have a why. I want to build this thing. And I don't just want to build this thing. I want this thing to be great. And what does it take for me to become great enough to be great? I think it just changes the mindset here. Am I on the right track as I'm thinking through
You're
that?
exactly right. And everyone's why is a little bit different, and maybe to show their kids that, hey, here's what it looks like to step out and take a risk and bet on yourself. And they want to set that example for others. It's, hey, let's serve the community and really feel plugged in and give back and create employment opportunities. For others, honestly, they say, hey, if I, in a day, I don't care what industry I'm in. I'll sell porta potties, rent them out. If I can make $1 million a year and go to the cocktail party, I'm fine being known as a porta potty king, right? And I say, well, is your spouse okay with that? Just want to make sure they're there. But everyone's why is a little bit different. For some, it's financial, and that's totally fine. For others, they say, hey, I want to make a lot of money, but I also want to have purpose and or have a sector industry that they're passionate about, like health and wellness or longevity, recovery modalities. But again, others say, hey, give me those industrial hose franchises that, allow me to serve other businesses behind the scenes.
The porta potty prince. I love that. That's pretty awesome. Adam Grant said something that I thought was really interesting here that made me think, because I'm a psychological professional, right, that works with businesses and business leaders and folks. And he said something that so really got me. He said, burnout is being overwhelmed by work. Bore out is being underwhelmed by work. And I thought this was really interesting that you would use that quote, because we do have a lot of people who experience burnout because they're just done. But then we have a lot of people who are bored and are just underwhelmed. And by the way, you make it really, really clear right after that you're never too young, never too old to franchise. Help people get there a little bit, because they're kind of like going, what do you mean? I mean, I'm in my 60s. Can I franchise now? And hey, listen, I'm only 24. Can I franchise? And I am bored and I am overwhelmed. Help me get there. What would you say to them?
Yeah, certainly we work with clients at both ends of those extremes. I'd say the sweet spot where a lot of people are their 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, that's probably the sweet spot. But no, we work with all ages, and there's never a good time to jump in the game, right? I mean, there's always going to be reasons why it doesn't make sense right now to get into business ownership. There's always excuses. End of the day, those that step out, it takes courage, right? And you're going to have naysayers around you. You're going to have a, spouse that's risk averse. You're going to have an uncle that had a bad experience as an entrepreneur. I mean, and I never sugarcoat it. I tell them if business ownership was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? I mean, there's a reason why you can make outsized returns. It takes effort. However, you pick your own hard. And I love that quote from Adam Grant, because I do believe in the conversations I have day in, day out, a lot of these clients are making pretty good money, but they've got the golden handcuffs, and they're saying, I'm not getting any younger. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And again, most people, it's been my experience, most people have an inner desire to control their own destiny, to build their own empire, to be a business owner. And some don't have the self-confidence. Some are trying to build up the self-confidence. It really is an interesting psychology seat that I sit in, where I play therapist at times. And I tell them, hey, if now's not the time, totally fine. I never try to persuade them otherwise, but I do let them know there's never going to be a perfect time.
Right. A question that's always comes up, I'm sure, for you, one that, you kind of talk about a little bit. Let's say I go into franchising and I have a job because I'm a little risk averse. Am I going to have to quit my job in order to get into a franchise?
That's the $1 million question. About half of our clients actually keep their day job, and the way they do that. So a lot of franchises out there offer what's called a semi-passive model or semi-absentee. You'll hear those terms. I prefer the term semi-involved. I think that's still a better term. End of the day, the idea is that you put a manager in place day one to run the day-to-day. Now, you better find the right person. You better incentivize them well, or else you're going to have a lot of headaches until you do. But if you have the right person in place, then the franchisor really can lean in and support them in a lot of their daily support needs and be the go-to for questions and carry some of that support water for you to allow you to keep your day job. And so that is a very common path that franchising allows for. But at the end of the day, it comes down to having a good operator that you put in that seat.
So let's say I am this passive or part-time, however we want to phrase it, executive of a franchise, and I've got to be involved at least on some level, right? I think you talk about, you're going to have to manage the manager, you're going to have to hire that right person. How many hours should maybe someone expect if they're going to have to put in themselves? Let's say even being part time, is there a range where you kind of see? And I understand every franchise is different, and they're all different, right? I don't want to put you in a position where you're having to say this is the rule. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, is there a range where you've noticed successful people who are able to do that passively?
Yeah, and you kind of hit on something there, Jay. Franchising gets categorized as a broad group, right? I mean, end of the day, it's several hundred different types of businesses, right? So
Right,
there's a
right.
lot of variance. And the requirements are very different. Some you run all by yourself, some that are run with a team of employees. I always encourage people to add 5 hours to whatever they think their number is going to be, per week. Early on, you are probably leaning in a little bit more, right? But if you have the right operator, then maybe they're putting in 15, 20 hours a week just at the very beginning. And then over time, it can be less than 5 hours a week.
Oh,
And I'll
wow.
go on record saying that because I've lived it firsthand myself. And I've seen many clients. A lot of our clients have multiple businesses. That's the beauty of a franchise is there's multiple ways to scale over time. You can come back and buy another franchise. A lot of our clients will do that. That's what I call franchise stacking, where they have multiple brands. Others will buy other franchisees in the system, what I call internal M&A, where you get first line of sight into anyone that's selling you, so you can expand that way. Others will go buy an existing business or start another business. So I always encourage people to think about what's right for that next season that's going to give them the platform to build off of, what gets them in the game. I think franchising is a great vehicle for that. But in those cases, when they've got multiple businesses, oftentimes they're not putting in more than 5 hours a week into a given business
Mm.
if they have the right operator.
Right. So this kind of starts to move. You started moving to a direction I was hoping you were going to go, and that is looking at franchising as also an asset class, right? It could be a business, but if you're a real investor, right, and you really want to do this right, this is actually you can have as part of your retirement portfolio, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty of it is when we think about investments and alternative investments, right? I'm very active. I invest in different real estate asset classes and private credit and everything out there, right? I think it's an all of the above approach. I love where business ownership and in particular franchising fits because you're not only building a cash flow, you are building an asset that one day you should be able to sell and
Right.
hopefully at a good multiple, which we can talk more about. But you're also getting the government incentives of the tax code working in your favor.
Mm,
There's
right.
so many more tax strategies that you can employ as a business owner than as a W-2 because the government incentivizes people to create jobs and build businesses.
You call that the trifecta in the book, right? I think you call that the trifecta. And then beyond all this, there is some psychological things that we've kind of talked about, and I would call it the second trifecta, and that is it's the idea of having freedom and independence and satisfaction that you've built something. You talk about those because it's bigger than just the money. I think that's the thing that comes through in chapter one. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think sometimes people recognize that up front. Sometimes it hits them later on. But I have so many clients that'll reach out and just be like, gosh, I wish I'd done this sooner, right? It's just, again, you pick your own hard,
Right.
but they're having that freedom. I mean, for me, Jay, I took my family on 4 international trips last year. I couldn't have done that
Wow.
as a W-2, right? Now, do I work hard? I work extremely hard. There's
Sure.
some mornings I'm in the office by 6 a.m. Fortunately, the office is in my backyard, but I'm in early. I push myself. I'm the hardest boss I've ever had. I'm a jerk to myself, but it allows me the freedom to live life on my terms and coach
Right.
my kids' sports teams and be active in the community and travel, which we're passionate about.
That's awesome. His name is Jon Ostenson. The book is titled Non-Food Franchising, The Better Path to Business Ownership. Outstanding. We're just getting started through chapter one. We're about to dive into chapter two and do some other things. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, one click. That's all it takes for ransomware or phishing to shut your business down. Stop the threat at the source with Data 443 Siren, Cyren. Powered by the world's most robust threat intelligence network, Siren detects and blocks attacks in real time, protecting your data, your employees, and your reputation. Stop hoping you're safe. Start knowing you're safe. Visit data443.com right now to see Siren in action. And Linda Kraft and Team Realtors. We all know that buying and selling a home isn't just a transaction, it's a major life transition. Whether you're buying your first home or first place, making room for a new baby, or downsizing for retirement can be incredibly stressful. That's why you need the Linda Kraft team. For over 40 years, Linda has been helping people in all over the world, and especially in the Research Triangle Park community, navigate these big life changes. Her team doesn't just sell houses, they take the stress out of the process so you can focus on the future. Don't go it alone. Let 40 plus years of experience work for you. Visit lindacraft.com. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Jon Ostenson, author of the book Non-Food Franchising, The Better Path to Business Ownership. Jon, let's go into franchising versus startups, because you say franchising isn't for everybody, and there's some basic considerations that we need to take into account. One of them is your personality profile. Why is that such a because you say you make something, which, by the way, I thought was absurd when I first read it. No offense to you, I just thought it was absurd that you said, well, some people can be too entrepreneurial. And I went, whoa, back up the truck here, Jon. What do you mean the personality profile and being too entrepreneurial?
Yeah, and it's nothing against them, but end of the day, they want to put their thumbprints all over everything they touch, right? And they're not willing to follow a system. They don't have that humility to step into someone else's playbook, if you will. They want to be the ones writing the playbook, even if it's not the right playbook. And I've seen case studies of this play out where they think they're the smartest guy in the room, no matter what room they're in, and that is fine. They should be the ones out there creating the technology companies, the ones that have $1 million idea. But I would say for the vast majority of people, they benefit by having a system in place that they can step into. But it does take a degree of humility, and I always emphasize that.
Yeah, so I can kind of relate to it on some thing. I'm a constant creative, right? But I actually operate better with a reasonable set of steps. Does that make any sense at all? I don't know if I'm making any sense.
It does. And a lot of existing business owners that started their own company, for their second rodeo, they say, wait a minute, maybe franchising makes more sense, because they have an appreciation for everything that's provided that they didn't have first go round.
Yeah, because so there's a difference for me on the entrepreneurial side of working for somebody who has rules that are so restrictive I can't do anything, right? That I can't own anything and I can't run anything. And then there is, hey, here's the bicycle. Okay, just put your feet on the pedals, ride it. By the way, you get to turn it a little bit here and there, but but we've already got the bike for you. You don't have to build the bike from scratch. Just get on it and start pedaling a little bit. And there's an appeal to that to me, even as somebody who's highly creative and entrepreneurial, because I do like to invent things and sometimes reinvent things, but I'm safer in that system. And I think that's probably the pride and humility to recognize. You got to be able to recognize, right, that you're not going to reinvent the wheel here. You're not going to be able to do the wheel, but you're probably actually better in that system. True.
Yeah, and a good franchisor is going to allow you to take some creative liberty and try some new things. You can't go crazy with the brand, right? I mean, that's got to stay consistent.
Right,
you wouldn't want your fellow franchisees hurting the brand in any way, but they're going to allow you to try some new things and innovate, and that's oftentimes where the best ideas then bubble up.
You also talk about here something you got to consider is that you're going to typically send about 5 to 7% of your top line revenue back to the franchisor form in the form of a royalty. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go through the discovery phase, you want to ask the questions about what am I getting for this royalty, both tangibly and intangibly. understand, are these expenses that you might be incurring if you were to just start a business yourself, and instead they get packed into that royalty. You know, franchising again gets grouped together. End of the day, it's several thousand different companies that operate a little bit differently. And like any other industry, you're going to have great players. In the case of franchising, great operations that provide the support that justifies that royalty. And then you're going to have some that don't. And that's where we come in to help our clients try to identify the ones that do provide that value behind that royalty stream that you're paying.
Let's talk about the success rates of your own startup versus franchises, because I found this fascinating about the difference. Tell people explain people the research that's been done on this, the success rate between somebody who starts their own business versus buys into a franchise. What are some of the stats around that?
Yeah, you know, we all hear the success stories of people that have started their own business, and we read the headlines. End of the day, for every successful business, there are a lot of failing businesses, and some don't last a full year, some don't make it 5 years. They typically run out of cash because they're spending way too much money on marketing, you know, and they don't have the data sets that have already been played out in other markets, right, that they can pull in. And so when I see different numbers out there, Jay, so I'm hesitant to go on the record with any one source because I don't know that an exact number is known. Right. But let's just say significantly more small businesses go out of business than franchises. Now, we do have some cases where they do. Like, it's not risk proof. It's, you know, but your chance of success, if you put the effort in, is significantly higher, and the numbers show that.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for here is not a specific number, but that I think, you know, the research that you quoted from the Small Business Association, you know, which defines small businesses 500 employees or less, right? It's like failure rates of startups over the course of time is around 90%, right? Whereas you did a study, about 85% of franchises are still around after 5 years of franchises. So, I mean, there is a disparity. And by the way, everybody thinks they can run their own business and be successful. That's not just, sorry, that you can't. I wish you well. I'm not against you. It's just really, really hard. Okay. I'm speaking from experience here. This is really, really hard what I do, right? Because you are your only source of income. I don't have any help, right? That's the beauty about franchising. Why do you think franchises are more successful on the average?
Yeah, end of the day, it's been proven out. If it didn't work in the first market, they probably wouldn't take it to the second market, right? So there's been a few more reps that have been put in as they've refined the machine before they roll it out to other markets. You know, end of the day, it's a neat business model because you're learning from a larger data set. So when the franchisee steps in, not only are they stepping into a technology stack, so they don't have to take the time to figure that out, you know, it's already there for them, but they've got marketing data that's already been somewhat optimized, you know, in similar markets. So they're not having to repeat the same mistakes. Instead, you really start on third base instead of first base, right? To be cliche on you. But you can't say enough about having the encouragement during tough times of others that are living the same thing day in, day out, right? A lot of them have been at the point that you're in. They're a few steps further down the road. You can learn from them, be encouraged by them. So I'd say those are some of the ones that come, you know, top of mind. Certainly there's the tangible economical, hey, if you're able to buy your goods and services at a lower price, that's going to help your margin. Some of that you get back in the form of royalty. But again, in most cases, that royalty is justified by what it's providing to the bottom line.
Yeah, I think the thing is, we'll probably get into a little bit about item 19 a little bit here, right? But there is this, you talk about, there's this little bit of a de-risk. Maybe it's not completely risk-free. We're not saying that, but maybe it lessens the risk a little bit because you have the opportunity to speak to the franchise owners and you can have this process and that you don't have when you're doing a startup, right? I mean, when I was starting my coaching business, I talked to other coaches who were in the industry, right? Got to tell you, I showed up as a competitor, not as a friend, right? Because for many of them, they fear that what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking away their business, their potential client, right? Well, the franchise has already kind of figured out, you know, well, we don't want to oversaturate an area with franchises, so they're looking at areas. Do I got that right? A little bit.
Yeah, they would define a territory. So you have a protected territory, and in a lot of cases, territories. People buy multiple territories out of the gate to give themselves a path to scale. But no, someone else cannot come in and operate in your area.
Right. So I don't have that agreement, right? As a coach, right? There's no agreements here. There are probably 40 coaches within a 10-mile radius of me right now. Probably that many realtors, by the way. I'm just guessing. But what I'm saying is, within a 10-mile radius, if I'm into a franchise, there's nobody else there in that area. I'm not competing with another franchise like me, right? The one thing that you did say here that I thought was fascinating was you said franchise businesses have a 50% higher exit value on average compared to their non-franchise counterparts in like-kind industries. Why?
The research has shown that there's a lot of value in the eyes of the resale buyer, and that franchises on average traded at a multiple about 1.5 times that of a normal business in the same industry. And part of that is because there's risk in buying an existing business, and people see that if they're paying a premium for that business, they want to know that there are systems in place, that there's not going to be as many gotchas. Because whenever you buy into a company, you're making a lot of assumptions. You're assuming that employees are going to stay. You're assuming the key customers are going to stay. End of the day, if you step into a franchise, you have a little bit of a fallback in that you've got a team supporting you on the sideline, and again, a community of others running the business that you can learn from. And a lot of the buyers that buy into existing franchises are other franchisees in their system. They get first line of sight into anyone that's selling. So we have a lot of people reach out to us and say, hey, ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition, that's a big idea out there. We want to buy an existing franchise. Well, that's great. And we participate in that, but oftentimes the good ones never hit the open market because another franchisee will buy them. So, and typically that franchisee is paying a little bit of a premium because they already know the system. There's a ton of value in their eyes. So they never have to take it to the open market and potentially discount it.
I love that. Thank you for such a great lead into chapter 3, by the way, John. You just like kind of, I know what you're doing. Good. Well done. Well played. Because I was going to just talk about franchising versus entrepreneurship through acquisition or an ETA, right? Because there's some pros and cons in that too, right? Because there are people who are attracted to, will probably say to you, why don't I just buy an existing business, right? I mean, I got the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, if I buy an existing business, maybe it's a little cheaper, maybe not, maybe it's more expensive, but I got an existing business, versus a franchise, that I'm going to have to start. So, John, what's the pros and cons of buying the franchise versus, purchasing an existing business?
Yeah, buying existing business can be a great proposition. And there are a lot of people out there looking right now. It can definitely be a good proposition if you find the right one, all the terms align, and there are no big surprises. However, my experience, so I'm working with 4 different Harvard MBAs right now individually that have been looking for existing businesses for years. I've got other clients that have been looking for 3 years or 4 years for an existing business. One client even hired 2 analysts full-time for 2 years to go find a business for him. And so it takes time. In most cases, time that could have been spent building a business, where franchising allows you to get in the game, start building. You can then acquire other franchisees potentially down the road. You can still buy other businesses, but allows you to get in the game and start building. That's one of the things I love. Now, again, buying existing business can be good in that, maybe there is cash flow day one. Maybe there is a team that's going to stick with you, though that may or may not happen because you're inheriting someone else's team, right? You're inheriting another culture that you're stepping into. Once you start weighing the pros and cons and really digging deeper, a lot of clients will come around and say, I really like the franchising proposition because it's proven, though it's new to this location, it's a proven system, and I can put my thumbprints on the culture. It's my team. I'm not inheriting someone else's team. Right. But no, I think they can both be valid pathways. One just allows you to get in the game sooner. Maybe it's a little bit less risk.
Well, let's just go through this logically. And I'm going to be honest. Some of this comes from your book, but I started thinking through it. As a executive performance coach, right? People purchase an existing business, right? You inherit a team. And so you inherit this team. Now you come into their culture as the new business owner. Are your core values exactly the same as the core values that everybody was under when you purchased that business? My guess is no, which means there's already going to be some tension because they're expecting change, which means that nobody's working at full potential. The second thing is, okay, you buy this existing business, and the person who owned this business was kind of like, everything is status quo, everybody's doing just fine. But then you own it and you get into it and you go, you know what? There's some dead wood here. They aren't doing anything. Right. And then all of a sudden you want to get rid of it. And then you bring up another great point. Oh, what about human resources? How's that going to be managed? Right. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to be down on, purchasing an existing business, but it's just not that neat and clean as you would like it to think that it would be, where I can see, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jon, I've kind of got this franchise, everything's all kind of built in. So yeah, I know I got to work hard, and I may have to, do the upfit and the whole thing like that. But I've already got, I'm going to hire who I'm going to hire. Do I got this wrong? Have I missed it?
Yeah, and there's not a right answer for everybody out there,
Right.
but I think there's another side that you're pointing out, that I'm pointing out, that oftentimes people overlook.
Yeah. Well, you talk about something that sometimes the cost of entry in franchising often is lower than purchasing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot less. You're paying a premium when you buy an existing business in most cases.
So we talked about that in the franchising landscape, we have full-time owners and we got semi-absentee, or however we want to phrase those folks. Most brands, though, you talk about, want the owner-operator model. Some of them will require that. This is kind of something I think we have to throw in the back of our head, that many of these franchises, they want us to be the owner-operator and be there, correct?
Yeah, we work with over 600 different franchise companies that are looking to expand, and I would say probably 25% of those would say we have to have an owner operator.
Got it.
The other 75% say, hey, we're okay if you put a good manager in place. Their logic behind it is, we want to have great people join our franchise system. They understand sometimes great people don't have the bandwidth to step into an owner operator role, but they still want those great people. They know that, hey, if they have experience managing people in their background, that's going to translate over into business ownership. They're going to put someone strong in place, support them, incentivize them, and and they're comfortable with that.
So one of the things you pose is, you talk about why not food franchises. Although we're not saying that they're evil. So I don't want to make sure everybody doesn't hear that. All right, it's not that. But then you say, people are gravitating toward, in the market, is maybe this non-business franchising. Why are we seeing a shift maybe where, initially the food franchise was a big deal, and still is on a large scale, but we're having more and more clients now, at least what you're telling me, is they're gravitating toward this non-business franchise market. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we've never seen so much interest in franchising, I think, for a variety of reasons. And where a lot of people are coming in are saying, hey, we're not interested in food. And again, I'm happy to get into all the reasons why, but where they're gravitating is oftentimes, I joke that non-sexy is the new sexy when it comes to business ownership. They like industries that are maybe blue collar, where you can bring a white collar approach. And so it's things like home services and property services, everything from restoration to insulation to, I've done a couple of pool cleaning deals in recent weeks, to flooring and cabinets, things around the home. It's businesses in health and wellness, recovery modalities, fitness. Everyone cares about health and wellness these days. It's the senior population. I mean, that's a large addressable market. There are a lot of different ways you can play that. anything related to kids, pets, things that regardless of the economy, people are always going to spend on. And there's so many different niches within all of these broad categories that I'm mentioning that people wouldn't think of until it's right in front of them. And there's also a number of B2B services, everything from freight brokerage to insurance adjusting to business coaching, consulting to dumpsters to mobile drug testing or environmental testing behind the restoration companies, air quality. So many different areas to get involved in, and people are gravitating towards those niches. They don't want home cleaning. They don't want mosquitoes. They want the things that don't already have a lot of large companies playing in them.
I love that. I love what you're saying. That's awesome. Good for you. His name is Jon Ostenson. The book is entitled Non-Food Franchising. You try it. You try saying it quickly. It's not that easy. Okay. Non-food franchising, the better path to business ownership. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, in the digital world, your inbox at your front line. Is yours defended? Data 443 Siren, CYREN, provides next generation anti-phishing and threat detection that works instantly in the cloud. It's the invisible shield that keeps your business running smoothly while blocking the chaos outside. Protect what you've built. Head on over to data443.com and get protected today. Hey, if you're planning a move, you've got to check out lindacraft.com. I admit I am biased. Honestly, though, it is much more than just a website with home listings. She understood, and over the course of her 40 years plus, that moving impacts your whole life. That includes your family, your kids, and even your pets. That's why your website features an exclusive advice from a child psychologist on how to help kids adjust to a move, and even tips from a veterinarian on how to move with pets. It is the complete emotional resource center for your family. See the difference. Log on today. Check out lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. Hey, they tell me executive coaching is supposed to sound fancy, but where I'm from, back in the Midwest in Nebraska, I just call it winning. If your business is doing good, hey, that's great. But good doesn't build a legacy. I'm Coach Jay. I take high performers who are already doing well and push them to the absolute next level. Smart strategy, zero fluff. Yeah, maybe a bad joke or two along the way. If you're ready to stop playing defense, start dominating, let's talk. Go to jayizzo.com. That's JAYIZSO.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Jon Ostenson. The book is entitled Non-Food Franchising. And I said it correctly without stumbling over it. The better path to business ownership. Jon, hope you're having a good time. I'm enjoying having you on and talking about this. This is really awesome stuff. So I hope you are enjoying it as much as I am. Let's talk about financial fundings and returns. There's people out there who are chomping at the bit saying, well, Jon, how much can I really make? How much, what's it going to cost me to get in? What do you tell them? And then there's this thing called the item 19, quote unquote. Jon, walk us through some of this.
Yeah, one of the benefits of a franchise is that every franchise system has what's called an FDD, a franchise disclosure document. It gets updated every spring. And in there, they break out what's called the item 7, where they show the breakout of all the expenses that should be incurred within the business, so you're not guessing. And then they also have what's called the item 19, where they break out the historical financial representation of their franchisees. Again, giving you an idea of what can be possible, what you potentially make in the franchise. And so, end of the day, it provides a helpful data point. Is it an absolute, rule that you're going to fall in that item 19? No, a lot of our clients exceed the item 19. Some occasionally come up short, but it gives you a really good gauge of what's possible. Within the item 7, the all-in investment, it usually includes your franchise fee, your startup cost, and several months of working capital all built in. So to give people an idea of what a franchise purchase looks like, if you're getting into a franchise that requires a retail brick and mortar physical location, your all-in investment is probably somewhere in the $300,000 to $600,000 range. If it's a service-based business, which is about 2/3 of what our clients go into, all-in investment may be between $100,000 and $250,000. I'd say that's where most of them fall. And most people are not using cash to fund it. Most will put in maybe 50,000 in cash, then use an SBA loan. We work with SBA loan providers, can help our clients with those, but most people will use an SBA loan to fund the business. Some will use a retirement rollover. It's what's called the ROBS program. You can purchase the business with your retirement plan, then you pay yourself a salary from that. And there are a few other small programs as well that I can talk about. On the item 19 financial side, what can you make? I'll tell you what, Jay, it is across the board, so many different business types. But let's just use one example. I had 10 clients over the last couple of years get into a franchise that is a property services franchise. And average revenue is right around $1 million in that franchise. Some people will hit it year one, some hit it year two, some hit it year three. But we've definitely had clients hit it in year one. Average revenue, $1 million. It's dropping about 25% to the bottom line. So $250,000 that you're bringing home. All in investment on that one's right around $200,000. So end of the day, that's a pretty good return, $250 every year on an investment of $200,000. Now, it's not just a passive investment. You're having to put time in and run the business, right? But you're also building an asset that you'll be able to sell one day. So when it's eye-opening to people sometimes when you see the return percentages of what can be made, but the trade-off is that there's effort that's being put in.
Is there something about, and maybe this gets back to the first thing you and I talked about, is there something about the people that you see who have that kind of success that there's certain things that you see in common with them, that where you see people who aren't as successful in franchising? What were some of those things where maybe you notice, like you go, hey, this guy wants to purchase, or this gal wants to purchase this franchise. I know that they're going to be pretty successful, and here are the reasons why, because I see this. What are some of those things?
I get asked this a lot, and there are three things that I would point to, two of which are just common to business. It's business 101. One is you've got to be halfway decent with people, right? You've got to be someone that people want to work with, work for. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you've got to have a work ethic. Again, it goes without saying, but some people don't. And so if you have those first two things, in franchising, it's then a willingness and that humility, like we talked about, to follow the system. It sounds cliche, but when I was president of Shelf Genie Franchise System, I looked at our franchisees across North America. Our top performers followed the system the closest, and they were willing to spend on marketing, and they were willing to, go through the procedures and the way that we recommended the different processes and such. It's the ones that try to buck the system, the thing that are the smartest guy in the room, that oftentimes will struggle.
Mm. Yeah, ego gets in the way here too, doesn't it? All right. It's a deadly thing, and then people with ego don't have any self-awareness, and that self-awareness ends up killing you over the course of the long run, for sure. You did bring up the fact that there's SBA loans, Small Business Association loans. You talked about rollovers, which I think is awesome, and then you also did bring up that if people are veterans, right, there is some franchise discount fees generally available for those folks who've served their country. True.
Yeah, and they're not massive discounts. I wish there were more, but they are. You'll probably save $5,000 to $10,000 on that initial purchase with most systems.
When you think about, I'm thinking about. I think people get locked in that they don't know all the possibilities of non-food franchising, right? Because it's just not something, right? I mean, you've talked about groups like. Property services, right? But they're not thinking about like what's all within property services. Like you did bring up pool cleaning, but then there's like installations, there's gutters, there's pavings, there's rollaway dumpsters, people, property management, the health and wellness thing. I think that's a little bit cool because there's fitness technology, there's programs, there's isn't there a franchise out there? Correct me if I'm wrong. Where for like spin classes or biking classes or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Is there, right? So, I mean, and then people know the automotive ones, you're just not thinking about them. Meineke, Mako, Jiffy Lube, car washes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 80 to 90% of our clients end up going into an industry that was never even on their radar. So, we have clients right now, think about like the senior space. go beyond just in-home senior care. We do plenty of those placements, but it's, we just had clients sign this week in Minnesota with one where they're essentially consultants on all the local caregivers in the market and the different nursing homes, and they get a referral fee from those companies as they take people and serve them by providing expert guidance, and then they get a placement fee when they place them. On the flip side, in the children's space, teen driving school, that's required in 35 different states, and it's a highly fragmented, unsophisticated market that you're up against out there. We've had clients do incredibly well with youth soccer, as an example. Mobile pet grooming is big. But then within B2B services, there's just so many different areas there. We have a client that just signed on. They cater to offices, the coffee machines, high-end coffee machines. They come back and refill them and service them. That same client also bought an insurance adjusting franchise, and they're going to launch them simultaneously.
Wow.
But property services, we have a client that just signed 2 weeks ago up in Pittsburgh, where they buy, they get great lead flow from the franchisor of all the homes that are getting ready to go on the market in their area. And then they're able to wholesale and flip those homes, or fix them up and renovate them, or buy them and rent them out. So it's a great model and we have a lot of real estate clients. A lot will go into property management or into, fields that support their current portfolio of homes. Right. That they're like, hey, if I'm already paying for this, artificial turf, that's a great one right now.
Wow. Yeah.
There's only one player in that space in franchising. And so we like these different niches. Some of the ones that I own, Jay, I've got one that provides asphalt paving and line striping, so parking lots. I've got another one that provides temporary containment walls around renovation projects. Again, things that you wouldn't think about until it's right in front of you. Right. And go, my gosh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's just so cool. Before we go, want to talk about, and I know this isn't a word. I don't think it's a word because it's not showing up in my dictionary. But is my business franchisable? I don't know. Is franchisable a word? I don't even know if it is.
I use it.
Because it's not in my dictionary, but I'm using it. So, how do we know if my business is franchisable? Because everybody wants to think, I think I could take this, company into a franchise, but I don't know that's necessarily true. What do they, some of the thoughts?
Well, based on the industries I just rattled off, it's probably got a few more people leaning in saying, maybe I could franchise this business. End of the day, it's, do you have good systems in place? Is it a business that can make sense in other markets? Is it a business that somebody would want to buy and start up in another market? And are you open to supporting franchisees, inviting them in? It can be a great way to scale your business because you're using other people's money. They've got skin in the game. They're highly incentivized. Private equity loves franchising. So when you think about the long-term play of what you're building, it opens up a lot of doors. But Jay, you've got to be ready to support these new owners. You can't invite them in if you don't want to support them. So I'd say you really have to do a deep dive, look in the mirror and say, this will change your day-to-day. And some people love that transition, others don't. So you just have to decide if that's a path you want to get down. I'm more than happy to jump on a call and have that conversation with anybody though.
Well, let's do that because I'll tell you what, we've done an hour and it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed having you on, Jon. The book is great, Non-Food Franchising, The Better Path to Business Ownership. By the way, this is not a long read, folks, but boy, it is a full read that you will learn more. I learned more in the 75 pages of this book than I have learned in my entire life about franchising. I'm just telling you, he sets it out straight and it gets right to the point. And it's very good. Jon, tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, F-R-A-N, bridgeconsulting.com. Follow me on LinkedIn as well. But if you come out to our website, share your email address. We'll send you a free downloadable copy of the book that Jay's been referencing. Also, it's entirely free to work with us. We simply get a referral fee on the back end from the brands, very much like a real estate model. If you're going to buy a house, you'd use a real estate agent. That's the role that we serve, but on the franchising front.
That's awesome. Stay with me, will you please, Jon? Hey, folks, it's a show you know what I say to you every week, right? You are in control of three things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. The fact of the matter is life doesn't always give us what we want, and we find ourselves in circumstances we didn't choose. But you know what? You have control over your attitude. Make it a positive one because it's within your control. Not always easy, but you can do it. Your effort is tied to your excellence. right? We don't always have the same amount of energy in the tank on any given day. And we don't always have the same ways of being able to do things. But you know what? With whatever you have, give your best effort and be excellent. That's your choice too. And then finally, we all get punched in the gut or punched in the teeth and get knocked down, but it's up to us to get back up again. That's your resiliency. And we need you to get back up. Why? Because you're worth it and we want you on the team. You know what? I'll be back next week with another great book. It's going to be another great author and it's going to be automatically another great show. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate that. You know what? Give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching us on the show there. Wherever you're listening via podcast, all over the world, right? 143 countries now and growing. Wherever you're listening to us, we give us a 5-star review. And more than that, we tell your friends to tune in and listen. You know what? I appreciate you all. You know what I say to you every week, and that is this. Ciao, everybody.